YouTube announced somewhat recently they're planning to remove a feature called Community Contributions on September 28th of this year, which lets members of the community add subtitles to videos which have the feature enabled. YouTube cited issues with spam and abuse as well as general lack of use of the feature as reasons why it was being removed. However, their response is really lackluster and pretty misleading, and I'm going to quickly break down why. Too Long Didn't Watch, YouTube statistics are misleading and roughly 20,000 channels a month publish new captions. Creators already have to approve their captions anyways. YouTube's automatic captions are really not ready enough to replace this feature, and there are simply some things only human translators and captioners can do because technology hasn't really gotten to that point yet. Anyone relying on the captions, such as the deaf or hard of hearing, or anyone who doesn't natively speak the language of the video, are not going to be able to rely on automatic captions and sometimes only have the choice of community contributions to even watch videos at all. Some creators who don't make videos in English, for example, rely on community contributions to translate their videos into English so that people who speak English can watch them. Same applies for all other languages, but English speakers are a pretty big chunk of YouTube's viewer base, and I'd like to specifically call this to attention as multilingual channels would be decimated by this change. YouTube removing this feature harms these viewers and creators massively with no sufficient replacement, and a better solution would just be better methods of preventing abuse and advertising the feature so more people actually use it. That's a short summary of this video, and if that's all you wanted to see, thanks for watching. Spread the words, make captions your own if you have the time and ability, and hopefully YouTube will take the community's concerns into consideration and not discontinue the feature. Otherwise, if you'd like to hear the full explanation where I back up these claims in more detail, please continue watching. So, diving into this, here's part of the statement from YouTube. Both creators and viewers have reported problems with the community contributions feature, including spam, abuse, and low-quality submissions. So I understand the problems with people potentially spamming the captions. As with anything else submitted by the community, there is potential for abuse. But as with a lot of other community submitted things, it also helps out a lot of people. I don't think that the trade-off of completely removing this feature is really worth preventing abuse. YouTube already has creators opt into this feature, and creators need to manually approve community captions, so those things alone should prevent people from just spamming random popular videos with abusive captions. Even if and when it does slip through those checks though, why not improve reporting tools rather than just removing the feature entirely? You're basically taking a boat that has a crack in its hull, and rather than fixing it so it won't cause problems later on down the line, you're lighting it on fire and saying, well hey, you guys can swim, right? While also ignoring everyone who is physically unable to swim and has been relying on that boat to get places. And as for low quality submissions, what exactly qualifies as low quality? Poorly transcribed, mistimed, doesn't pick up speech properly? Well, those things and more are already in YouTube's automatic captions, which I'll talk about later, but they're pushing automatic captions as an acceptable substitute, so are these mistakes okay, or what? And honestly, I have never used automatic captions when community written ones were available. Maybe I just haven't found these low quality submissions anywhere, but quite literally every time, the community captions have been better than the automatic ones. And if they really are unusable to the point of being completely unwatchable, can't creators just simply reject them? Isn't that why they need to be approved in the first place, to prevent these issues that YouTube is citing? Continuing YouTube's statement, as a result, the feature is rarely used, with less than 0.001% of channels having published community captions, showing on less than 0.2% of watch time, in the last month. Instead, creators are using YouTube's alternative captioning tools. This part is really inaccurate for a couple of reasons. First, they only talk about the last month, as in only the people doing things in the last 30 days since they posted that, which is going to distort things, but we'll come back to that. YouTube cites less than 0.001% of channels as using it, but YouTube's channels are basically user accounts. Not all users upload videos. Some just comment and some just watch videos without even commenting, so already a large portion of YouTube users don't upload videos, which means that they can't use any sort of captions because there's nothing to caption. But not only that, not every YouTuber only has one channel. Look at any YouTuber with a second channel. Plenty of YouTubers make one for less formal or more off-topic content that they don't want on their main channel. Heck, some just spin off other channels for series that get big enough. But those would count as two channels, and this applies to anyone with a second account. If you have one account under your real name because it was linked to your Google account and another under an online handle, congratulations! You have two channels too, even if you don't upload videos on either, and thus would never accept community contributions anyways. But getting back to the point, let's use YouTube's own statistics here. YouTube themselves claim they have over 2 billion users. This is on their press page, which I've linked in the description. Let's round it off and say it's 2 billion even to make the math easier and maybe round out any statistical errors. Well, 0.001% of those channels is 20,000 channels. Again, we're using YouTube's numbers here, so this should be a pretty accurate estimate, or at least what YouTube could reasonably estimate based on their own metrics. Now, here's where that in the last month part comes in. YouTube isn't saying 0.001% or 20,000 channels have ever used the feature. They're saying 20,000 people in the last month have published new captions. And again, bear in mind, this is on channels that upload videos, opted into the feature, and had people writing captions and approve those captions for publishing in the last month. This doesn't count people who don't upload, or people who don't use community contributions. Only the people who have opted into this feature, had people write captions for them, and then approve them in the last month are counted, and that's still 20,000 channels alone, which is a massive amount of people publishing these on a monthly basis. And most importantly, this is a pretty major accessibility feature. People who don't speak the language of the video, in this video's case English, rely on them to understand the video. I speak from experience here, as there's been quite a few channels which I rely on these community contributions to even watch. Without community members translating these videos into English, I am completely unable to watch them. The creators either don't speak English or don't have the time to translate their videos into English, which, if they did, they would probably be uploading these captions themselves rather than relying on the community. And the same applies for every other language as well, which is including the literal billions of people who don't speak English natively. About 1.2 billion people speak English natively, or as a second language, means if there are about 2 billion YouTube users, then probably about 800 million of them don't speak English. The deaf and hard of hearing also rely on community contributions because the subtitles are the only way they may be able to experience videos on YouTube at all, regardless of language. And there are 20,000 channels publishing new captions every month, which is 20,000 channels who likely can't caption on their own, and thus 20,000 channels that a very large portion of users may no longer be able to watch. And while there are automatic captions, they're not a very good solution, and certainly not a replacement. They do work a lot better than they used to a few years ago, but honestly, they're still not a complete replacement for this. YouTube mentions that automatic captions are used way more than community ones, but automatic captions are available on pretty much every video, whereas community contributions are only on videos which have people writing captions and which the creators have published, which gives the automatic captions a significant advantage that I don't think YouTube is accounting for. Also, another huge part of community contributions isn't just subtitling, but translating, and the only way of getting automatic translations is on PC through Google Translate, which is already unreliable and even worse when it's not detecting the original text right. And automatic captions are only supported for some languages if it even detects the language correctly. I've seen 30-second English videos with decently clear speech picked up as Spanish or Korean or Portuguese. To be fair, I don't think automatic captions are bad. They definitely have their use and can give a rough jumping off point in making captions, which is definitely helpful, but there are some things automatic captions simply can't detect, like different speakers, sound effects, people talking in different tones of voice, obscure context-specific terms, or time-based puns. Automatic captioning is just not a full replacement for human-made captions, which, if this change does go through, there will suddenly be a lot less of. YouTube, your own press page claims your service is available in over 100 languages in 80 countries, but this change would deeply harm users and creators alike who don't speak English and don't pay for the premium captioning service you're pushing as a replacement. Yeah, captions which have already been published will still be available, but what about new videos uploaded after September 28th? Anyone relying on community captions to understand videos, no matter what language they speak, is suddenly going to be unable to watch these creators if they don't use these paid services. YouTube is giving people who've used community contributions 3 times in the last month a 6-month free subscription to Amara, but that's only going to be temporary, and after that, Amara starts at $12 a month for 25 team members and 5 target languages, which also have additional charges for more team members and languages. I'm going to be honest, I don't really know if this is going to be as open as community contributions are, where anyone can submit subtitles for approval without speaking to the video creator, or if those price limits are problematic. I haven't used Amara myself. But the bottom line is YouTube is essentially telling people who rely on this feature to watch videos that their creators will not have to pay Amara to continue even watching the videos. And if they don't pay, and these people who've used this feature forever to watch videos suddenly can't understand much of what's on the site, well, YouTube is kind of implying that they'll just have to deal with being deaf or hard of hearing or not a native English speaker or what have you, and just suddenly not being able to watch a lot of the content that's on YouTube to begin with. With all this in mind, I think community contributions are pretty much irreplaceable. They're built into the site using the same subtitling tools as creators use themselves. The editor is pretty easy to understand when you get the hang of it. They're free, and they can be contributed by anyone without having to ask the creator for a member role or something. Yeah, creators do still need to approve them, but I'd argue it is a lot easier and less time-consuming to approve captions already made for you than to buy a service, try and find people willing to caption your videos, add them as a team member, then approve those subtitles. Not to mention the fact that these subtitles services YouTube suggests as alternative are, once again, paid subscriptions, and I don't think small channels can or want to afford that cost. I certainly can't. I'm not a big channel with a production studio and a lot of income. I'm just some guy making videos on his computer with the games he's already bought. I didn't do this because I wanted to manage a business and make money and hire on team members and all that. I do this because I like making videos and sharing them with the internet, and I think there are plenty of other creators out there that share my sentiments. Overall, I honestly think this is a great feature for accessibility, translation, or just plain crowdsourcing in general, and I'm hoping enough people talking about this will get YouTube to realize that this is a really bad idea. They've locked comments in the official discussion thread, so aside from maybe spamming YouTube on Twitter, making a video seems to be the best way to go about it, so here I am. If any of you are interested in making community contributions to try and show YouTube that there's still interest in the feature or just to help your favorite creators out, I plan to put up a tutorial on how to do that pretty soon. You can find everything I've cited throughout this, as well as a link to the tutorial when I upload it down in the description. Also, if there's something I missed or you just want to share how community contributions help you, feel free to leave a comment on this video. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.